Hi, good day, and welcome to another edition of AEA Insights. On this show, we try to break down the complex energy and power sector conversations to the very barest minimum. My name is Daniel Odro. Today, I've been privileged again to be joined by engineer Jabesh Amissah-Arthur. He is the managing partner for Arthur Energy Africa, a very leading company when it comes to the energy sector in Ghana, West Africa, Africa, and the world at large. Today, we're going to talk about a very important subject. We're going to talk about the role of natural gas in the energy sector and our power generation. What more can natural gas be used for, and is it the future of power generation in Ghana and on the continent of Africa? Engineer, thank you very much for joining us once again.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Like I mentioned, I'm becoming an energy expert just by associating with you.
Yes. Yes, a few more of them, and then we'll give you.
I'll be an expert.
Yes,
I'll get a certificate.
Yes.
Thank you very much. But let's talk about natural gas and its role in our energy sector and what it portends for the future. Since when has natural gas become a very important player in our power and energy sector?
We started looking at the possibility of generating electricity with natural gas in around the mid 1980s.
Right.
There was a production of oil going on at Salpon,
Okay.
and Phillips Petroleum before then. And by then, they had decided that the wells were producing more gas and not enough oil. And there were fields that were exclusively gas. And so we're looking at using that. So for about 1987, we started considering generating power from natural gas to supplement the hydro sources that were getting depleted at the time. So we have been looking at this for a long time. It wasn't until the first big thermal plants were not built until about 1998.
Okay.
So we have been looking at them for about 10 years before the first thermal plants were built. That is, the Takoradi thermal plants were built. And initially, they started on crude oil and so on until the gas became available. Okay. But we had always had an interest in using natural gas because it was a cleaner fuel, and it was also more economic to use that.
Okay.
And so that had always been a good candidate for it. The third advantage of natural gas in power generation is that when you use natural gas in your equipment, it doesn't impose such a heavy maintenance burden as when you use liquids and especially when you use crude oil.
Okay. When
When you use crude oil for power generation, it imposes a heavy tax on the equipment, which gas doesn't do. So it has been of interest for a long time, but it wasn't until in the 2010s when production became substantial with the Ghana gas plant that the generation started.
So for you, the experts, it may be cleaner, it may be efficient in terms of maintenance and all and what have you, but is it cheaper to use natural? Is it cheaper compared to hydro?
It is cheaper. Not compared to hydro.
Not compared to hydro.
Compared to the other thermal sources, is cheaper. Really, it's because it's difficult to transport natural gas and make it marketable the way oil is. Oil, you produce 100 barrels, you are able to sell it on the market. Gas has not been like that. And so you were typically constrained to use the gas where you found it or close by. Now there are longer pipelines to move it, and there are liquefaction plants to liquefy it into liquefied natural gas and transport it. But they are all difficult. So natural gas has always been easier. And the history is that most oil companies drilled looking for oil to sell. And when they found natural gas, it was essentially a coincident product.
Okay.
Then so you could just get it at a lower price.
Oh, okay.
So that had been the history of natural gas.
Okay. I read an article, I don't know if it was produced by you, but it was quite interesting to see the mix, our energy mix, and how hydro was leading. And in the last 10 to 15 years, natural gas seems to have a bigger chunk of the percentage in terms of our energy mix.
Yes.
Is it a deliberate attempt? Is it something that's just occurred?
It is organic.
It's organic.
It's organic. Because what has happened, let's talk about Ghana.
Right.
Because the other sub-regional countries are probably a little behind. In Ghana, we developed the most efficient hydros first, and the largest ones, coincidentally. And by the mid-1980s, we knew that the most efficient and the largest ones had been developed, and there were no bigger ones left.
Okay.
And as the demand for power grew, we knew that we had to find thermal sources. They were the next. Okay. And so from then, but that transition took a long time. From the 80s until 1998, as I'm saying, before we had the first thermal plants in production. From then, the proportion of thermal generation in our mix has been growing steadily. And that's why you see, as at now, 2/3 of our production in the country is from thermal sources, and only 1/3 or so is from the hydro sources. So the significance has grown, and it has had an impact on the cost structure of the sector as well.
Positively?
No, because the hydro sources are certainly far cheaper and more stable. Because once you have finished constructing the hydro plant, the annual costs that add up, they are very little. Whilst for a thermal plant, a large portion of the cost of a thermal generation is the fuel. And you know the international price for fuel keeps fluctuating. Right. So it's not stable, and all you need is some problem somewhere in the world and the prices start going crazy on you, and you don't have a choice. You have to buy the higher prices. So life was easier whilst we were hydro-dominated, because the cost was stable. You knew what it was from year to year, and it didn't vary very much. Yeah. But in the thermal environment, or in the thermal dominated system, now we have to be ready to take price fluctuations. Right. And that is one of the challenges that we just have to deal with, because the hydro sources are determined by nature. Yeah. It's the landscape and the hydro resources, the water resources that you have, that determine whether you can have a hydro or not. And as I'm saying, all the big resources that are available in Ghana have been developed. And to go further, we have to look at other sources. We are doing a lot of thermal now, which is based on gas and liquid fuel. But as we go forward, we may even have to look at nuclear and introduce nuclear to push up our supply.
You mentioned that those who were trying to look for oil found gas as a coincidence. My question is, in terms of natural gas, what else can it be used for outside of power generation? Is it an important commodity to have?
It's a very important commodity to have. It's an important commodity to have, and it has many uses. Just to mention a few, those closely related to power generation are those industries that require heating, so that they can use the natural gas for heating. Because what is the point in, for instance, using the gas to produce electricity, taking the electricity to heat up a furnace? You are just going through a lot of conversions, which you can avoid by doing direct heating with gas. There are some industries that are particularly suited for using natural gas as a process for the process heat, like the ceramics.
Okay.
The ceramic industry would love to use natural gas directly for heating, as well as many others. Then for the economy in general, natural gas is also used in the production of fertilizer.
Oh,
So
is
if
it?
we have a good plan for our agriculture, it could involve using natural gas.
How do we use it?
The fertilizer is the feed, one of the feed components for the production of fertilizer, some of the fertilizers. Then there are also the plastics and other stuff like that. So there are a lot of other uses that you can have for
Are we
gas.
using that as a country, not to just, I mean, because for a lot of us, it's just for power generation. And all these things that you mentioned, are we actually using them for them?
Power probably brings the highest value to the gas.
Okay.
To use it for some of the other things, they have to be priced lower.
Okay.
They as input, for the input to work with those other industries, the price has to be lower.
Okay. You are still on AEA Insights, and today my guest is Engineer Jabesh Amissah-Arthur. We're having a conversation that's very critical and important to our power and energy sector or sectors. We're talking about the role of natural gas in the economy. Engineer has made us understand that it's not only used for generating power, but can be used in other industries like the ceramic industry and other industries. So, Engineer, the government says it's trying to put up a second gas power plant. Is that, in your opinion, a very good move to do?
That is a fantastic idea.
Okay.
Because we do have the resource. If we have the resource, we have to make the best use of our resource. And to put up a second gas processing plant is essential for various reasons. One, the gas that we are producing now, it's all being consumed in power generation, but it's not adequate.
Okay.
There are plants that are being starved of fuel, and having the additional gas processing plant will increase our power generation.
Okay.
And as I've said, there are other industries that need to or could be moved on to gas to be more efficient. But one of the things we need to do, in addition to the gas processing plant, is to have the infrastructure that we need. Right now, most of the gas, apart from the pipeline that has been constructed to take some gas towards Kumasi, there's a lot of need for gas in Tema.
Okay.
But it's not being delivered to Tema. And we have to consider putting in the infrastructure to move the gas from the west to the east, to make it available all along the coast. There are industries along the coast that could benefit from it, Accra and Tema especially, where there's probably more than 600 megawatts of thermal plants that are stuck in Tema, and when they are being used on liquid fuels and so on, which could be better powered with the natural gas. So the gas processing plant, the additional gas processing plant, I think is important and is good for the future of the country. But we must add to that the development of the pipeline to move the gas from where it's being produced to where it's needed.
Who are the players in there? Are they private sector or is government led? And what would be your advice?
I think that given our development strategy, we should be looking at public-private partnerships to implement these projects. Okay,
all right. Is it an expensive venture for, say, private people to enter?
Well, it is not cheap, but the economics are promising.
Okay.
And if the economics are promising and there's a reasonable certainty that the private sector will get paid, because the private sector, obviously, they are looking for their profits. They'll make the investments as long as there's a promise of profits. So as long as the industries are healthy and they are willing and able to pay, I think that we can get the private sector to fund it and then to take their payments over a period.
I know how passionate you are about interconnectivity and being good neighbors and all of that. If this capacity is developed further, is this something you're looking at having some form of WAP setup for the sub-region, for example?
Well, WAP has had plans to set up a WAP-sponsored plant in Ghana that would provide power to anybody in the sub-region who was short of power.
Okay.
So that would be a fantastic approach for it. Given the geographic location of Ghana in the West Africa sub-region, we can export northwards, eastwards, westwards. So it is a good location. And that would be something that we could encourage.
Okay. Is it depletable, so that in terms of security, if it is not something that is there in perpetuity and it gets extinguished, how do we go? What do we do in terms of our security?
Well, it's a resource that is extinguishable. Okay. Yes, that is true. It's extinguishable. But the good thing is that there are a lot of prospects to find more, to supplement what you have. And then if you are even, so far we have had gas, we are getting to 15 years now.
Oh, okay.
Because it was under Atta Mills when we started the production, probably around 2011.
Yeah.
And we are in 2025.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have had some good years of it. Probably we have another 15 to go. Okay. And by then we'll find something else and use something else. As I'm saying, we are expecting to get into nuclear, and that will help carry us forward.
Okay. Are there new technologies that will make it more viable? Is it sustainable? Now a lot of conversations are around greener, cleaner energy. You think that's the future of the power generation energy in general?
Well, it is the transition.
Yeah.
Is going forward, and I don't think that it will stop. I think that what we have seen in the changes in the energy structure, we all now have LED lights, which are fantastically more efficient than the bulbs we had before.
Yeah.
We are having all kinds of technological changes, and it will go forward.
Okay.
So sometimes it's true that when you jump on the bandwagon too early, you pay a steep price. And I think that we have done some of that, made some of those mistakes. We have to wait a little bit and let some of the technologies mature.
Okay.
And then we can be part of that transition. Okay. Yeah.
Engineer, thank you very much. Do you have any final words to tell those who are thinking about natural gas, its uses, and what advice would you have for government in the other African countries? I know you are very particular about developing and having your neighbors also develop alongside you. Yeah,
I think that what the ECOWAS Energy Protocol says is that we have to pursue the efficient development of all the energy resources in the sub-region, and gas is one of them.
Okay.
And we are lucky to have found them in the quantities we have. So we have to put in the infrastructure to make the best use of it, encourage our people to migrate to using that to where it's more efficient. I think that, for instance, I believe that our Energy Commission should be encouraged to focus on the interplay and the substitutions that can take place as we look at all these energy resources, and encourage the various uses that will make it possible for the economy to be most efficient. Okay. I think that it is very promising, and we should pay attention to it.
You think that's important in this new government's agenda of 24-hour economy, where if you want to really accelerate that, you need power constantly and reliably?
Yes, I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the efficiency of the economic activity in Ghana. As I was pointing out, if you are involved in an industrial activity for which gas is more efficient than electricity, you should be encouraged to make that transition.
Okay.
And there are industries in Tema, there are industries all along the coast that could make that transition to make the entire economy more efficient, to make their operations less costly and more profitable and more competitive. And we need to do that so that our economy and our production is competitive.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer. Thank you
Thank
once
you.
again for spending time with us. My name is Daniel Ojo. This has been another insightful conversation on AEA Insights. Like we told you and promised you, we're bringing you conversations that break down the most complex and technical issues to the very barest minimum. My name is Daniel Ojo. This has been another edition. We're back another time with another insightful conversation. Until then, it's bye for now.